How did baseball's oldest official franchise, playing in the league's tiniest park, manage to hold off the likes of the Dodgers, Braves, and Giants to win the 1961 NL Pennant? Well, in this book, Before the Machine, it is explained. The following are some excerpts from Mark J. Schmetzer's well-researched and easy-to-follow prose. And welcome back to the Cincinnati Kids Vintage Baseball Card Channel, where stories, history, and cards, both yours and mine, come to meet. At the close of the 1960 season, the Reds were a franchise on the verge of failing. It had been 20 years since the club had treated the tri-state area with a world championship over the vaunted and loaded Detroit Tigers. Boasting a roster of Hall of Famers, Charlie Gehringer and Hank Greenberg, pitcher Schoolboy Rowe, the Tigers would fall to the underdog Reds, led by two stellar starting pitchers, including Bucky Walters. These Reds looked primed to dominate for years, but World War II would change that. The club would suffer from losing season after losing season for the better part of the late 1940s and all the 1950s, save 1956, when the Reds, mostly led by their 221 home runs by the likes of Ted Kluszewski, rookie Frank Robinson, and catcher Smokey Burgess, nearly took the pennant for the first time in 16 years. However, Big Clue would go on to hurt his back, and Robinson couldn't carry the team by himself for the next few seasons. For the 1961 season, veteran GM Bob DeWitt was hired to be the GM of the Reds. He promptly hired his former ace pitcher from his Detroit days, Fred Hutchinson, to manage the club. Almost immediately, DeWitt traded away two huge Cincinnati stalwarts. They were local legend Joe Nuxhall, who had literally pitched his way out of the Queen City during the 1960 season. He agreed that his performance was so bad that the fans needed a better deal. Nuxie, as he was belovedly called, who was the youngest ever to debut in the major leagues, was eased into a one-year exile to the Yankees' former minor league team, Kansas City A's. Joe would quip years later that the Ribs were actually better in Cincy than in Kansas City. The other was shortstop Roy McMillan. Roy had been the everyday infield anchor the last 10 seasons in Cincinnati. In fact, he had established several businesses, including a popular pizza chain in Hamilton, Ohio. The soft-spoken Texan, known as Mr. Shortstop, wasn't surprised with the trade and took it in stride. He would be moved to Milwaukee for bonus baby pitcher Joey J., better known for being the first Little League ball player to reach the bigs. He hadn't so much as warmed up in 2 years of El Bencho status behind the likes of Warren Spahn, Johnny Sane, and Lou Burdett. But Jay had a big arm, if unproven. The loaded Braves were looking to shore up their defense, and the Reds needed pitching badly. Next on the list was third base. The Reds had neither defense nor offense at the hot corner. The Reds settled on Pirates third baseman Gene Freese. Definitely more of an offender than a defender, Freese would be crucial to the Reds' success in 1961, providing stellar defense and plenty of pop at the plate. Left fielder Wally Post would be perhaps the early season team MVP, with stars Vada Pinson struggling early at the plate and Robinson troubled with arm issues. Wallop and Wally, along with Freese, would keep clearing the bases until Pinson and Robbie got it going. Frank, also a native of Texas, ended up in California during his high school years and would play basketball with the one and only prep cager legend Bill Russell. Pinson also went to the same high school. However, Robbie was a bit volatile and endured run-ins both on the field and off. A hard slide into Braves third baseman Eddie Matthews during the 1960 campaign led to a bitter on-field brawl between the Reds and the Braves that wasn't forgotten quickly by both teams, even though Matthews and Robbie would make up during the early going of the spring training schedule in 1961. In a separate off-field incident, Robinson was found in possession of a handgun after he had been threatened by an obviously racist restaurant employee. Robinson pulled his pistol when an employee came at him with a knife. Matthews, after teammate Lou Burdett had pretend frisked Frank during a spring pregame on-field festivities, said, "Hey, Robbie, I'm not fooling around with you this year." Also in the outfield was platoon player Jerry Lynch, the most clutch pinch hitter in the bigs that season, known as Lynch in a pinch by Reds fans. And rounding out the squad would be the key in-season trade for Don Blasingham. The Reds had struggled at the top of the lineup early on, but adding Blasingham, who became the everyday second baseman, balanced the lineup out. The Reds would feature 3 top National League starters during the 61 campaign: the aforementioned Joey J, soft-throwing Bob Perky, who spent his early career with the Pirates, and rookie lefty Jim O'Toole. When the Reds needed a stopper, O'Toole was the guy. He would be on the hill as the Reds clinched the pennant over the Dodgers. He would actually out-duel the left arm of God himself in a critical midseason matchup with the second-place Dodgers. But then there was the bullpen, which included rookie Jim Maloney, a converted shortstop, and both a lefty and righty closer setup combo with Bill Henry, who had a hard sinking fastball, and righty Jim Brosnan, who, just like his predecessor, whiz kid Jim Constanti, used off-speed pitches to get batters out. Brosnan, a bespectacled jazz-loving writer, penned the book The Long Season as an account of his memories of the 1959 season, which would see him traded mid-season to the Reds from the Cubs. Speaking of writing books, our author, Mark Schmetzer, was able to provide a feel-good relief piece in the middle of the nail-biting season unfolding for the Reds. With a 2 to 3 game lead over most of the distance, the author spent some time recounting the childhood of recently deceased Hall of Famer Dave Parker. Parker, who was born and raised in Cincinnati, would recount his time in and around Reds Park during this season. Rarely able to go to a game in person, Dave would talk of getting to open the door of cabs ridden in by none other than actors Mickey Rooney and Chuck Connors of Rifleman fame coming to see the Reds play. The Reds would clinch the NL on September 25th with a win over the Cubs and an 8-0 Dodgers loss to the Pirates. And so it was on to the World Series. The Yankees took Game 1 behind Whitey Ford's strong pitching and solo shots from Moose Skowron and Elston Howard. Joey J pitched to Jim in Game 2 as the Reds' bats woke up for a 6-2 win in New York. And it really came down then to Game 3 in Crosley Field. Bob Perky was cruising for the Reds until Yogi Berra hit a blooper into short right center field. Game 2 hero Elio Chacon collided with Frank Robinson and the ball hit the Crosley turf. 1 run scored and tied to Game 3 at 2 runs apiece. A Johnny Blanchard home run would tie it again at 3 in the 8th inning, setting up a showdown with Perky still in the ball game facing Roger Maris. Well, it didn't go well for Perky, as Maris drove a hanging slider out of Crosley Field to win the game. Perky would say later he knew it as soon as he threw it that the fateful pitch was gone, and with it, the Reds' best chance to seize the series. Whitey Ford would return to the starting mound in Game 4 and pitched a 7-0 shutout that extended his scoreless inning streak to 32 in lifetime World Series appearances. The Yanks teed off on the Reds, winning easily 13-5 in Game 5, crushing the Reds' hopes for a world title. And as soon as it had started, it was over. The miracle season was finished. Manager Frank Hutchinson had this to say: "We were overwhelmed, but they are a fine team, and they can do that to you." Gracious in defeat, Hutchinson would go on to manage the Reds for a couple of more seasons, until he stepped away on August 13th, 1964. He would die of lung cancer later that year on November the 12th. The Reds were on the verge of winning another pennant that season, but would end up losing to the Phillies in the final week of the season. The Cards would end up taking the pennant by 1 game, and then go on to win the series versus those same Yankees. Frank Robinson would win the 1961 NL MVP over Orlando Cepeda, but within 9 years, Robinson and the also pictured here Pinson would be traded away. The only player left as a bridge to the 1970 Pennant Winning Reds was 1961 rookie Jim Maloney. He himself was on a way to a Hall of Fame career until he busted his Achilles heel running out a ground ball in April of 1970, and that was it. The last tie to an amazing team that was the light of the baseball world in 1961 was gone. And so with that, thank you for watching. Good night and good luck.